fist connected before anyone saw it coming. Commander Elena Ward hit the cafeteria floor hard, blood spreading from her split lip across the polished concrete. Sergeant Kyle Mercer stood over her, his face twisted with contempt, his voice cutting through the sudden silence like a blade. "I said, get out. You don't belong here, old woman." The room held its breath. 60 soldiers, all witnesses, all frozen. Elena didn't move. Not because she couldn't, but because in the 2 seconds she stayed down, she'd already counted exits, measured distances, calculated 17 ways to end him. She chose none of them. Because what Mercer didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that the washed-up admin officer bleeding on their floor had once operated in places that didn't exist on any map. If you want to see how this story ends, subscribe to our channel and stay with me until the final moment. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. Elena tasted copper. Her tongue found the split in her lip, and for just a moment, one crystalline moment, she allowed herself to remember what her hands could do, how fast they could move, how efficiently they could dismantle a threat. But she didn't move. "Did you hear me?" Mercer's boots scraped the floor inches from her face. "I said get out." She looked up at him, slowly. Her eyes met his and something flickered there, something that made his jaw tighten, though he couldn't have said why. "I heard you," Elena said quietly. "Then move." She pushed herself up. No trembling, no tears, just methodical precision. One hand, then the other, then her knees, then her feet. The blood dripped from her chin onto her uniform. She didn't wipe it away. Around them, the cafeteria remained paralyzed. Forks hovered over trays. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the kitchen staff had stopped moving. Private Marcus Chen, sitting 3 tables away, felt his stomach turn. He'd been at Fort Bragg for 6 months. He'd never seen anyone hit an officer. Not like that. Not with witnesses. "Someone should," he started. "Shut up," hissed Corporal Stevens beside him. "Don't get involved." But Chen couldn't look away. There was something wrong about the whole scene. Not just the violence, though that was bad enough, but the woman herself. The way she stood now, perfectly balanced, her weight distributed like she was ready for something, like she was waiting. Mercer circled her. "You know what your problem is? You think that uniform means something, that those stars on your shoulder mean we have to respect you." He laughed and others joined in, nervous, uncertain, but they laughed. "But we all know the truth. You're administrative, a desk jockey. You've never seen real combat. You've never—" "That's enough, Sergeant." The voice came from the entrance. Major Daniel Cross stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. He wasn't a large man, but something about him commanded immediate attention. 23 years in Special Forces would do that. Mercer straightened. "Sir, I know what you were doing." Cross walked into the room, his boots clicking against the floor with measured precision. "Commander Ward, are you injured?" Elena touched her lip. Her fingers came away red. "Nothing serious, Major." "That's not what I asked." She met his eyes. For a moment, something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. "I'm fine." Cross turned to Mercer. "My office. Now." "Sir, with respect, Now, Sergeant." The cafeteria exhaled as Mercer followed Cross out. Slowly, sound returned. Murmurs, whispers, the clatter of resumed eating. But the energy had changed. Something had been broken that couldn't be unbroken. Elena walked to the exit. She didn't hurry, didn't duck her head. She walked like someone who had nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Chen watched her go. "That was wrong." Stevens shrugged. "She shouldn't have been here anyway. This is the combat operators section. Admin eats elsewhere." "She's a commander." "Paper commander. Mercer's right about one thing. She's never seen action. Why should we treat her like she has?" But Chen wasn't so sure. He'd caught something in her eyes when she looked at Mercer. Not fear, not anger, something colder, something calculated. In Cross's office, Mercer stood at attention, his jaw clenched. Cross didn't sit. He leaned against his desk, arms folded, studying Mercer like a specimen under glass. Explain. She walked into the operator's section, sir. She knows that's off limits to admin personnel. I told her to leave. She refused. You struck a superior officer in front of 60 witnesses. She's not, Mercer caught himself. Sir, everyone knows she's only here because of some diversity initiative. She's 53 years old. She's never been deployed. She's... Careful, Sergeant. Very careful. Cross's voice was quiet, but something in it made Mercer's skin prickle. You're making assumptions. Dangerous assumptions. I'm stating facts, sir. Are you? Cross moved to his filing cabinet and pulled out a folder. A thin folder, mostly redacted pages. What do you know about Commander Ward's service record? Everyone knows. Admin positions, logistics, paperwork. This is her record. Cross opened the folder. Page after page of black bars, redacted text, classified stamps. Tell me, Sergeant, if she's just administrative, why is 90% of her file classified? Mercer stared at the pages. He hadn't expected that. You don't know, Cross continued. And here's the problem. You didn't ask. You saw a woman over 50 in a uniform, and you decided you knew everything about her. You decided she was nothing, and you acted on that decision with violence. Sir, I'm not finished. Cross closed the folder. Tomorrow morning, 0500, you'll report to the Combat Evaluation Range. Full gear, 3-day assessment, urban warfare, hostage rescue, tactical decision-making under pressure. Everything that makes you think you're worth something as a soldier. Mercer's confidence returned. The combat evaluation was his territory. He'd scored in the top 5% last year. Yes, sir, I'm ready. Good, because Commander Ward will be observing. The confidence evaporated. What? She'll be there, watching every decision you make, every mistake, every moment of weakness. Cross smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Consider it a learning opportunity. Sir, that's... Dismiss, Sergeant. Mercer opened his mouth, then closed it. He saluted sharply and left. Alone, Cross opened the folder again. He flipped past the redacted pages to one of the few unclassified documents. A commendation letter from 7 years ago. It was brief, formal, and gave away nothing. But Cross had served long enough to read between the lines. He'd made calls after Elena arrived on base 6 months ago. Quiet calls to old friends in dark places. The answers had been vague but consistent. Don't ask about her. Don't push. And for God's sake, don't underestimate her. He'd followed that advice, until today. Now, watching Mercer's arrogance, seeing Elena's restraint, Cross understood what needed to happen. Some lessons couldn't be taught with words. They had to be experienced. Elena sat in her quarters, holding ice to her lip. The room was sparse, standard officer housing, nothing personal on the walls, nothing that said who she really was, or who she'd been. Her phone buzzed, a text from Cross. Tomorrow, 500, combat evaluation. You're observing Mercer. She stared at the message for a long time. This was dangerous. Being watched meant being seen. Being seen meant questions. Questions meant exposure. And exposure meant the carefully constructed life she'd built here. Quiet, anonymous, safe, would collapse. But then she remembered Mercer's face. The contempt. The certainty that she was nothing. She'd spent 6 months avoiding attention. 6 months trying to forget. 6 months pretending that the woman who'd operated in Yemen, Syria, Somalia, in places without names, didn't exist anymore. Maybe it was time to stop pretending. She texted back, I'll be there. Morning came cold and dark. The combat evaluation range sat 5 miles from the main base, surrounded by forest and accessible only by a single dirt road. It was designed to simulate urban warfare. Buildings, alleys, rooftops, everything a soldier might encounter in hostile territory. Mercer arrived early, his team of 4 behind him. All men, all confident, all looking at this as routine. They'd done evaluations dozens of times. This would be no different. Except for her. Elena stood near the command post, wearing combat fatigues instead of her usual administrative uniform. The change was subtle but significant. She looked different, more alert, more present. Mercer ignored her. "Major Cross, my team is ready." Cross nodded. Scenario 1, hostage rescue. 3 civilians being held in the 3rd building. Unknown number of hostiles. Rules of engagement, minimum casualties, maximum speed. You have 30 minutes. Understood, sir. Commander Ward will be in the observation tower. She'll have access to all camera feeds and communications. She won't interfere, but she will be filing a report. Cross looked directly at Mercer. Everything you do, she sees. Everything you say, she hears. Mercer's jaw tightened. That won't be a problem, sir. We'll see. Begin on my mark. The team moved into position. Mercer took point, his movements sharp and practiced. He'd run scenarios like this 100 times. He knew exactly what to do. Mark. They moved fast, breaching the first building with textbook precision. Clear the corners, check for threats, advance. Mercer called targets. His team responded, everything flowing like they'd trained. In the observation tower, Elena watched. Her face betrayed nothing, but her hands moved across the control panel, switching between camera angles, monitoring radio chatter, tracking every movement. 8 minutes in, Mercer made his first mistake. He pushed too fast into the 2nd building without checking the windows. A simulated sniper would have had him. Elena marked it in her notes, but said nothing. 12 minutes in, he made his 2nd mistake. His team split up without maintaining communication lines. For 40 seconds, the left flank was completely isolated. In real combat, that was 40 seconds of vulnerability. 40 seconds where everything could go wrong. Elena's pen moved across the paper. Still, she said nothing. 16 minutes in, they reached the building where the hostages were supposedly held. Mercer stacked his team at the door, prepared to breach. On 3, he said. 1, 2. Elena hit the transmit button. Her voice filled Mercer's earpiece, calm and clear. Stop, Mercer froze. What? Don't breach that door. Commander, with respect, we don't have time for... The door is trapped. Look at the frame, bottom left. Mercer glanced down. His stomach dropped. There, barely visible, was a wire. A simulation wire, yes, but in real life, it would be connected to an IED. He'd been so focused on speed that he'd missed it completely. His team would have been killed, all of them, in the first real scenario. Back up, Elena said. Use the side window, 2nd floor, rope entry. Mercer wanted to argue, wanted to tell her to shut up and let him work. But the wire was there, undeniable. He'd missed it. Copy that, he said, his voice tight. They adjusted, used the rope entry, secured the hostages with 3 minutes to spare. On paper, it was a success, but Mercer knew the truth. She'd saved them. The admin officer he'd hit yesterday had just kept his entire team alive. Scenario 2 was worse. Urban patrol, potential IED threats, civilians mixed with hostiles. Mercer tried to be more careful this time, tried to prove he didn't need her help. But 20 minutes in, he pushed his team into a kill box, a narrow alley with elevated positions on 3 sides, a textbook ambush setup. Elena's voice came through again. You're walking into a trap. I can see that, Mercer snapped. Then why are you still moving forward? Because we need to clear the sector. Not through there, you don't. There's another route. North alley, then east. Longer, but defensible. Mercer stopped. His team was looking at him, waiting for orders. He could feel his authority slipping away with every second he delayed. "We're taking the north route," he said finally. "Smart choice," Elena replied. The way she said it, without sarcasm, without smugness, just simple acknowledgement, somehow made it worse. They completed the scenario, no casualties, no major errors. But Mercer felt something crumbling inside him. The certainty he'd carried into this evaluation, the conviction that he knew what he was doing, was developing cracks. By the end of day one, Mercer was exhausted. His team sat in the debriefing room, drinking water, comparing notes. They'd completed 6 scenarios. They'd survived all of them, but they'd needed help in 4. Cross entered with Elena behind him. She looked fresh, unbothered by the 16-hour day. Mercer hated that. "Solid work today," Cross said. "A few mistakes, but nothing fatal. Commander Ward, your observations?" Elena stepped forward. She held a notepad filled with her neat handwriting. "Sergeant Mercer demonstrates strong tactical fundamentals and good team leadership. His men trust him. That's valuable." Mercer felt a flicker of pride. Maybe she wasn't so. "However," Elena continued, "he prioritizes speed over safety. He missed 3 critical threat assessments. He put his team in 2 kill boxes that would have resulted in casualties. And he struggles to adapt when his initial plan fails." The pride evaporated. "These aren't fatal flaws," Elena said, her tone still neutral. "They're fixable, with training and experience." "Experience?" Mercer stood up. "I have 7 years in active combat units. I've been deployed 4 times. What experience do you have?" The room went silent. Elena met his eyes. For a moment, something flickered there. Something old and tired and infinitely patient. "More than you think, Sergeant." "Prove it." "Sit down," Cross ordered. "No, sir. I want to know. Everyone here wants to know." Mercer gestured to his team. "She's been judging us all day, telling us what we're doing wrong. But what has she actually done? Show us your record. Show us your deployments. Show us—" "That's enough," Cross said, his voice hard. But Elena raised her hand. "It's fine, Major." She opened her folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a deployment record. Dates, locations, duration. But every location was redacted. Every operation name was blacked out. Every detail that mattered was classified. "This is what I can show you," Elena said. "Everything else requires a clearance level you don't have." Mercer stared at the paper. "That could be fake. That could be—" "It's not fake." The voice came from Private Chen, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner. Everyone turned to look at him. I looked her up last night. After what happened in the cafeteria, I have a friend who works in personnel." "Chen, don't," Stevens started, but Chen kept talking. "Her file is locked, like really locked. The kind of lock that means someone in Washington doesn't want people asking questions. The only thing visible is her current assignment and the fact that she's been awarded 3 Defense Superior Service Medals and 2 Bronze Stars. You don't get those for pushing papers." The room was completely silent now. Mercer looked at Elena, really looked at her. Not at her age or her gender or the assumptions he'd made. He looked at the way she stood, balanced, ready, still. He looked at her hands, calloused, scarred in places he hadn't noticed before. He looked at her eyes, calm, patient, and utterly unafraid. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. Elena folded the paper and put it back in her folder. "Someone who's trying very hard to be no one. And you're making that difficult, Sergeant." She walked out. That night, Mercer couldn't sleep. He lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The way she'd moved, the way she'd spoken, the way she'd known exactly where the threats were, exactly how to respond, exactly what needed to happen. That wasn't theory, that was experience. His phone buzzed. A message from Cross. "Day 2 starts at 0500. Scenario will be more difficult. Commander Ward will be in the field with you this time. Mercer sat up. In the field? As in, participating? He typed back, "Why?" The response came immediately. "Because you asked her to prove herself. Now she will." Mercer lay back down. His chest felt tight. Tomorrow, the admin officer, the woman he'd hit, the woman he'd mocked, the woman everyone assumed was nothing, would be in the field with them. And he had the terrible feeling that everything he thought he knew was about to be proven wrong. Dawn came too fast. Mercer stood at the staging area, his team assembled, everyone quiet. The air tasted like frost, in fear. Elena arrived at exactly 0500. She wore full tactical gear, vest, helmet, weapon. Not the administrative version, the real thing. Everything fit her like it had been worn 1,000 times before. Because it had. Cross stepped forward. Today's scenario is different. Commander Ward joins Sergeant Mercer's team as 6th operator. Mission: extract a high-value target from a hostile compound. Time limit: 90 minutes. Failure conditions: HVT dies, team takes more than 2 casualties, or mission exceeds time limit. Mercer's stomach tightened. This wasn't observation, this was participation. She'd be judged the same way they would, or she'd expose them. Sergeant Mercer retains tactical command, Cross continued. Commander Ward operates under his authority. Understood? Yes, sir, Mercer said. Elena nodded. She checked her weapon with practiced efficiency, magazine, chamber, safety. Muscle memory so ingrained it looked like breathing. Chen watched her hands. They moved too fast, too sure. His earlier suspicions solidified into certainty. Whatever Elena Ward was, she wasn't administrative. Move out, Cross ordered. They headed into the compound, a maze of buildings, tight corridors, multiple levels. Intel suggested the HVT was being held on the 2nd floor of the central structure, but intel was always incomplete, always suspect. Mercer took point. Elena fell naturally into the rear position, covering their 6. No hesitation, no questions about formation or protocol. She just knew. First building, Mercer said quietly. Chen, Stevens, clear left. Morrison, Rodriguez, clear right. Commander Ward and I take center. They moved, fast and silent. The first room was empty. So was the second. But the third... Contact! Stevens's voice crackled through the radio. Simulated gunfire erupted. Stevens and Chen were pinned down by 2 hostiles positioned behind cover. Suppressing fire, Mercer ordered, but the angle was wrong. They couldn't get a clean shot without exposing themselves. Elena moved before anyone realized what was happening. She broke from cover, rolled left, came up behind a concrete barrier 15 feet away. Her weapon tracked smoothly to the first hostile, then the second. 2 shots, 2 kills, 3 seconds total. The room went silent. Clear, Elena said calmly. Mercer stared at her. That wasn't training. That was combat reflexes. That was someone who'd done this so many times that thinking and acting had become the same thing. Move, she said, and something in her voice made them obey instantly. They pushed deeper into the compound. Every corridor felt like a trap. Every shadow could hide a threat. The tension was a physical thing, pressing against Mercer's chest, making it hard to breathe. 2nd floor, he said. That's where... No, Elena's voice cut through. It's wrong. What? The intel is wrong. They're not on the 2nd floor. How do you know? Because if I were holding a high-value target, I wouldn't put them where everyone expects. I'd put them where no one looks. She pointed to a service door they'd passed. Basement, through there. Mercer wanted to argue, wanted to follow the mission parameters. But something in her voice, the absolute certainty, stopped him. How sure are you? 90%. That's not 100. Elena looked at him. Nothing in combat ever is. You make the call, Sergeant. That's why you're in command. The responsibility landed on him like a weight. If he was wrong, they'd waste time. If she was wrong, the HVT could die. But if the intel was wrong and they followed it anyway, "We go through the basement," he said. They moved to the service door. Elena went first this time, weapon up, scanning for threats. The stairs descended into darkness, real darkness, not just shadows. Someone had cut the lights. "NVGs," Mercer said, reaching for his night vision goggles. "Don't." Elena's hand stopped him. "They're expecting that. They'll have infrared strobes, blind you instantly." "Then how?" "Follow me. Stay close. Don't fire unless I fire." She moved into the darkness. Mercer followed, his heart hammering. He couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything except his own breathing. This was insanity. This was... Light exploded ahead. Muzzle flash. Elena was already moving, her weapon tracking to the source. Return fire. One shot. Darkness again. "Clear. Keep moving." They found them in a storage room at the bottom of the stairs. 3 hostiles guarding one HVT, a mannequin dressed as a civilian, hands zip-tied, hood over its head. Exactly like the real thing. The hostiles opened fire. Elena dropped the first before Mercer even processed what was happening. Chen got the second. The third tried to use the HVT as a shield. "No shot," Morrison said. "Too risky." Elena moved laterally, her steps silent, her weapon never wavering. She found an angle, barely 6 inches of exposed shoulder. She took it. The hostile went down. "HVT secured," she said. 38 minutes elapsed. Let's move." They extracted without further incident. 90 minutes became 45. 0 casualties. Perfect execution. Back at the debriefing room, Cross looked at the mission reports and said nothing for a long time. Finally, "How did you know about the basement?" Elena set down her water. "The mission brief said the HVT had been held for 72 hours. That's long enough to establish a routine. If they were on the second floor, there would be evidence. Noise, movement patterns, waste disposal. The upper floors were too quiet, too clean. That meant either the intel was completely wrong or they'd moved the HVT recently. Basements are easier to soundproof, harder to escape from. It was the logical choice." Mercer felt something crack inside his chest. That analysis had taken her maybe 3 seconds in real time. It had never even occurred to him to question the intel. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. Elena's face closed off. "Experience." "What kind of experience?" "The classified kind." "That's not good enough." Mercer stood up. His exhaustion was making him reckless, making him push when he should have stayed quiet. "You saved us today. Again. But we don't know anything about you. We don't know where you've been, what you've done, who you..." "Sergeant," Cross warned, but Mercer couldn't stop. "You move like special forces. You think like intelligence. You shoot like someone who's done it for real. So what are you? Who are you? Because I hit you 2 days ago, and you didn't fight back. You could have. I see that now. You could have ended me right there in that cafeteria, but you didn't. Why?" Elena stood. She looked tired suddenly, older than her 53 years. "Because violence should always be the last choice, not the first. Because I've seen what happens when people forget that. Because..." She stopped, took a breath. "Because I'm trying very hard to be someone different than who I was." "Who were you?" She looked at him for a long moment. Something in her eyes made Mercer's skin prickle. It was the look of someone who'd seen things that couldn't be unseen, done things that couldn't be undone. "Someone who didn't get to choose," she said quietly. She walked out. The room sat in silence. Finally, Chen spoke. "My friend in personnel. He said there's a gap in her record. 6 years, nothing visible. Just a notation that says TDY-JSOC. Temporary duty with Joint Special Operations Command. But there's no detail, no deployment locations, nothing." "JSOC doesn't leave blanks," Morrison said. "They're meticulous about records. Unless the operations were so classified that even acknowledging they happened is a security risk, Rodriguez added. Stevens shook his head. You're saying she's what? Some kind of covert operator? At 53, that's possible, Cross interrupted. More than possible. He looked at each of them in turn. Here's what you need to understand. Some people serve their country in ways that never make the news, in places that don't exist, against enemies no one talks about. And when they're done, when they come back, if they come back, no one says thank you. No one acknowledges what they sacrificed. They're just expected to disappear quietly and pretend they were never those people at all. Is that what she is? Mercer asked. Cross didn't answer directly. Day 3 starts at 0500. Get some rest. You'll need it. They filed out, but Mercer lingered. Major, is she in danger? By being here, by being exposed like this. Cross looked at him thoughtfully. That's the first smart question you've asked since this started. Yes, she is. Which is why this evaluation ends tomorrow, and why you're going to forget everything you've learned about Commander Ward after that. Understood? Yes, sir. But Mercer knew he wouldn't forget. Couldn't forget. Everything he'd believed about her, about himself, about what made someone worthy of respect, all of it was being systematically dismantled. And tomorrow was day 3. That night, Mercer did something he never thought he'd do. He went to Elena's quarters and knocked. She opened the door, still in her duty uniform, paperwork spread across her desk. Always working, always moving, like stopping meant remembering. Sergeant, it's late. I know, he struggled to find words. I need to say something. She waited. I was wrong. About you. About everything. I made assumptions based on nothing except my own insecurity and arrogance. I thought because you were older, because you were a woman, because you weren't loudly proclaiming your accomplishments like some of us do, that you had none. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. Not just for hitting you, though God knows that was unforgivable, but for every assumption I made, every disrespectful thought, every moment I treated you like you didn't matter. Elena studied him. What changed? Watching you work. Watching you make decisions in seconds that I wouldn't see in hours. Watching you move like someone who's done this 1,000 times because you have. You're better than me, better than any of us, and I can't, his voice cracked, I can't understand why you let me hit you, why you didn't fight back, why you're even tolerating this evaluation instead of ending me the way you obviously could. Elena stepped back from the door. Come in. He followed her inside. She gestured to a chair. He sat. She poured 2 glasses of water, handed him one, and sat across from him. For a long time, she just looked at him, weighing something, deciding. 14 years ago, she said finally, I was part of a unit that didn't officially exist. We operated in places where American military presence was politically impossible. Our missions were never acknowledged. Our casualties were never mourned publicly. We were ghosts. Mercer listened, afraid to breathe. We were deployed to extract an asset in hostile territory. The mission went wrong. We were compromised, surrounded, no extraction possible, no reinforcements coming, just 7 of us and 200 hostiles in a city that wanted us dead. Her hands tightened on her glass. We held a building for 72 hours, no sleep, minimal water, ammunition running out. One by one, my team was wounded. One by one, they stopped moving. By hour 68, there were 3 of us left. By hour 70, there were 2. She looked up at him. Her eyes were dry but distant. Her name was Captain Sarah Morrison. She was my team leader, my friend. She'd saved my life 4 times in 3 years. On hour 71, a grenade came through the window. She threw herself on it. Mercer's chest tightened. It didn't kill her instantly. Took 3 minutes. I held her while she died. Held her and promised I'd get her body home. That I wouldn't let them desecrate her. That I'd make it matter. Did you? I carried her through enemy territory for 6 hours, fought running battles with what ammunition I had left, used a knife when the bullets ran out, used my hands when the knife broke. I made it to the extraction point with 5 minutes to spare, collapsed the moment the helicopter took off. Woke up 3 days later in a hospital in Germany. She took a sip of water. They gave me medals I can't show anyone, commendations that don't exist in public records. They told me I was a hero, but Sarah was still dead, and I was still the one who lived. That's not your fault, Mercer said quietly, isn't it? I was second in command. Every decision we made, I signed off on. Every risk we took, I accepted, and she died while I lived. You survived because you were good enough to survive. That's not wrong. It's not about wrong or right. It's about weight. Elena set down her glass. When you carry that much weight for that long, you start to wonder if you deserve to put it down. If you're allowed to stop being that person. If you can walk away from the violence and become something else. She looked at him directly. So when you hit me in that cafeteria, and everyone watched, and no one moved, it wasn't strength that kept me down. It wasn't strategy. It was exhaustion. I've spent so many years being the person who fights back, who ends threats, who solves problems with precision and violence. And I'm tired, so tired of being her. Mercer felt tears on his face. He didn't remember starting to cry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. Elena's voice was gentle. And that's why you're still sitting here instead of in a hospital. Because I saw something in your eyes after you hit me. Confusion, uncertainty, like you'd crossed a line you didn't mean to cross, like maybe you were capable of learning. I want to learn. I want to be better. Then tomorrow in the final evaluation, I need you to trust me completely. No questions, no hesitation. Can you do that? Mercer nodded. Yes. Good, because what's coming is worse than anything we've faced so far. And if we don't work together perfectly, people die. Even in simulation, those deaths matter. They teach us what failure costs. She stood, signaling the conversation was over. Mercer stood too. At the door, he paused. Commander, that 6-hour run through enemy territory, how many hostiles did you encounter? Elena's face went very still. Enough. How many did you? Enough, Sergeant. That's all you need to know. He left. But as he walked back to his quarters, his mind kept returning to her words. To her hands, scarred, calloused, efficient. To her eyes, patient, tired, haunted. She'd said, enough. But Mercer had seen combat. He knew what it took to fight through 6 hours of enemy territory with a body on your back and diminishing ammunition. Enough was a number much higher than anyone wanted to think about. Morning would bring answers, or more questions. Either way, Mercer knew his world had already changed. The woman he'd dismissed as nothing had turned out to be everything he'd pretended to be. And tomorrow, she'd prove it one final time. Day 3 started in darkness and rain, the kind of cold, driving rain that made everything harder. Vision, movement, communication. Perfect conditions for the worst-case scenario. Cross stood at the briefing point, water streaming off his helmet. Final evaluation. Combined arms assault on a fortified position. Enemy force estimated at 15 hostiles. Entrenched, prepared. Your mission? Breach, clear, and secure the compound. No time limit, no second chances. If you fail here, you fail everything. Mercer felt his team tense. This wasn't a standard scenario. This was the nightmare situation every operator feared. Outnumbered, outpositioned, attacking an enemy that saw them coming. Elena checked her weapon. Water beaded on the metal. She looked calm. Too calm. Rules of engagement? Mercer asked. Survival, Cross said. Theirs or yours. Choose wisely. They moved out into the rain. The compound sat a half-mile ahead, accessible only through open ground with minimal cover. Approaching it was suicide. Attacking it was worse. "We need a plan," Stephen said. Mercer stared at the compound. Every instinct told him to find another way, to circle around, to wait for better conditions. But Cross had been clear. This was the test. This was where they proved themselves or broke. "Elena," he turned to her. "What do you see?" She studied the compound for 30 seconds. When she spoke, her voice was different, harder, more focused. This was the voice of someone who'd done this for real. 3 entry points. Main gate is obvious, they'll have it covered. East wall has a weak point, looks like recent repair work, probably compromised structural integrity. West side backs up to a drainage ditch, gives us a covered approach but dumps us right into their kill box. So what do? We don't attack the compound. Everyone stared at her. "Then what?" Mercer started. "We make them come to us." Elena pointed to a cluster of buildings 200 yards south. "We take position there, create noise, make them think we're staging an assault from that direction. Draw their forces out of the compound into the open." "That's," Morrison hesitated, "that's not the mission. We're supposed to clear the compound." "The mission is to survive," Elena corrected. "Everything else is tactics. You want to run across open ground into prepared positions? Be my guest, but you'll be dead before you get halfway." Mercer made the decision. "We do it her way. Move." They relocated to the buildings Elena had indicated. Once inside, she started issuing orders. Not suggestions, orders. Her voice carried command authority that made everyone respond automatically. "Chen, Rodriguez, make noise. Move between windows. Make them think we have more people than we do. Morrison, Stevens, you're with me on the south side. When they deploy, we hit them from the flank. Mercer, you stay here and coordinate. When I give the signal, you bring everyone to my position. Fast." "Wait," Mercer started to protest, but she was already moving. The plan worked better than it should have. The hostiles saw movement in the buildings, heard noise, assumed a larger force. They deployed from the compound, 8 of them, moving in formation toward the buildings, right into Elena's trap. She hit them from the side. 3 shots, 3 kills before they even knew she was there. The remaining hostiles scattered, trying to find cover, trying to regroup. "Now," Elena's voice cut through the radio. "Flank them! North side!" Mercer moved his team into position. They caught the hostiles in a crossfire. Within 90 seconds, all 8 were down. But that left 7 still in the compound. "They know we're here now," Stevens said. "Element of surprise is gone." "Good," Elena said. "Now they're scared. Scared people make mistakes." She moved toward the compound, not running, not hiding, just walking through the rain like she owned it. "Commander, what are you?" Mercer called. She raised her hand. "Stop talking. Trust me." She walked to within 50 yards of the main gate, well within rifle range, exposed, vulnerable. "This is Commander Elena Ward," she called out. Her voice cut through the rain, amplified by something Mercer couldn't identify. "You've lost 8. You have 7 left. I'm giving you one chance. Stand down, open the gate, walk away." Silence, then laughter from inside the compound. "Why would we do that?" a voice shouted back. "We still outnumber you. We're still in position. You're standing in the open like an idiot." "Because I've done this before, for real, and I know how it ends." Elena's voice was steady. "You're using the standard defensive formation. 3 on the walls, 4 in reserve. Your fields of fire overlap at the gate, but leave blind spots at the corners. You've got maybe 200 rounds per person. You think that's enough? It's not." The laughter died. "You're bluffing," the voice said, but it sounded less certain now. "Am I?" Elena started walking forward again. "Last chance, stand down." "Take the shot," someone inside yelled. Gunfire erupted. Elena moved, not diving for cover, not running away. She moved laterally, fast, her body low, her weapon tracking. She fired 3 times. 3 hostiles on the wall dropped. 4 left, she shouted to her team. Breach the east wall, now. Mercer didn't hesitate. His team hit the weak point Elena had identified. The wall gave way. They poured through. Inside, chaos. The remaining hostiles were panicked, disorganized, trying to defend against attacks from 2 directions at once. It was over in seconds. Mission complete. 0 casualties. Textbook execution. But Mercer couldn't shake the image of Elena walking toward that gate. Exposed. Alone. Either completely insane or completely certain she was untouchable. He was starting to suspect the latter. Back at the debriefing room, Cross looked at the mission reports and actually smiled. Outstanding work. That's the best performance I've seen in 5 years of evaluations. It was Commander Ward's plan, Mercer said immediately. All of it. We just followed orders. Cross looked at Elena. Is that accurate? Sergeant Mercer made the decision to trust me. That was the hard part. Everything else was just execution. Just execution, Morrison repeated. You walked into the open. You called them out. You made yourself a target. I made myself the priority target, Elena corrected. There's a difference. Once they focused on me, they stopped thinking about everything else. That's when you win. That's when you die, Stevens said. Only if you're not fast enough. Elena looked at him. I was fast enough. Where did you learn that? Chen asked, the question everyone was thinking. That's not in any manual. That's not any doctrine I've ever studied. Elena stood. I learned it the same place I learned everything else, from people who are dead now because they taught me to survive. She walked toward the door, but Cross stepped in front of her. Sit down, Commander. We're not done. Something in his tone made everyone tense. Major, Elena started. Sit down. She sat. Cross pulled out a tablet. During this evaluation, I made some calls, asked some questions, got some answers I wasn't expecting. He looked at the team. Everything you're about to see is classified. Everything you're about to hear doesn't leave this room. Is that clear? They nodded. Cross turned the tablet around. On the screen, drone footage, black and white, grainy, time-stamped 14 years ago. It showed a compound under siege, muzzle flashes, bodies, chaos. Operation Sanctuary, Cross said quietly. Yemen. Officially, it never happened. Unofficially, it was one of the worst compromises in JSOC history. 7 operators deployed to extract a high-value asset. Mission went bad in the first hour. Extraction was impossible. They were left to hold position until political considerations allowed for rescue. The footage continued. Hours compressed into minutes. The defenders getting smaller, fewer, more desperate. After 72 hours, only 2 were still combat effective, Cross continued. The ranking officer was Captain Sarah Morrison. The other was Lieutenant Elena Ward. Mercer's breath caught. Lieutenant? She'd been younger, less experienced, but there on that screen, fighting with the same precision he'd seen 3 days ago. The footage shifted. A grenade. Morrison moving. The explosion. Elena holding her, then lifting the body, then moving through the compound into hostile territory. What followed was 6 hours compressed into 3 minutes. 6 hours of running, hiding, fighting. The footage came from multiple drones, multiple angles. It showed Elena carrying a body through streets filled with hostiles. It showed her using buildings for cover, using darkness for concealment, using every advantage she could find. It showed her killing. Efficiently, repeatedly, without hesitation. Confirmed hostile casualties during extraction, Cross said. 37. The number hung in the air like smoke. 37. In 6 hours, while carrying a body, with limited ammunition. She brought Morrison home, Cross continued, refused to leave her behind, refused to let them take her. She made it to the extraction point with her weapon empty, her knife broken, and her hands covered in blood. And when she collapsed on that helicopter, the last thing she said was, I kept my promise. The footage ended. The room was silent. Chen spoke first. 37. Confirmed, Cross emphasized. Actual number is likely higher, but those are the ones we could verify from drone footage and post-battle assessment. Stevens looked at Elena. She sat perfectly still, her face unreadable, her hands folded in her lap, but Mercer could see her jaw was tight. Her breathing was controlled. She was holding herself together by force of will. After that operation, Commander Ward requested reassignment, Cross said. She spent 6 years in various positions, all classified, all high risk. She accumulated 3 Defense Superior Service medals, 2 Bronze Stars, and a Silver Star. She was offered promotion to 06, full colonel. She turned it down, said she was done. Why? Rodriguez asked. If she was that good, why would she? Because she was tired, Elena said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Because I'd spent enough years being the person who solves problems with violence. Because every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. The people I killed. The people who died next to me. The people I couldn't save. Her voice cracked slightly. Because I wanted to be someone else. Anyone else. So you requested administrative duty, Cross said. You buried yourself in logistics and paperwork. You hid who you were and what you could do. You tried to disappear. Yes. Why come to Fort Bragg? Mercer asked. This is special operations training. You must have known. I thought I could observe without participating, watch without being seen, train the next generation without revealing who trained me. Elena looked at him. And then you hit me, and everything I'd tried to bury came back to the surface. I'm sorry, Mercer whispered. Don't be. You gave me something I needed. She stood. You gave me a reason to stop hiding, to admit that I am who I am, and what I did matters, and the people I lost deserve better than me pretending they never existed. She touched the tablet, rewinding the footage to the moment Morrison died. Her name was Sarah Morrison. She was 31 years old. She liked terrible coffee and good whiskey. She sang off-key in the shower. She wrote letters to her mother every week. She saved my life 4 times in 3 years. And she died because she loved her team more than she loved her own survival. Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice remained steady. For 14 years, I've carried her memory like a weight, like a burden, like something I had to drag behind me everywhere I went. And I'm tired of that weight. I'm tired of pretending she doesn't matter. I'm tired of hiding who she made me become. She looked at Mercer. You asked me why I didn't fight back when you hit me. The truth? In that moment, I wanted to disappear so badly that even violence seemed like too much existence. Too much presence. Too much proof that I was still the person who could do those things. She wiped her eyes. But I am that person. And Sarah died so I could live. And I owe it to her to actually live. Not hide. Not disappear. Live. Mercer stood and walked to her. He didn't salute, didn't speak. He just placed his hand over his heart, the gesture soldiers use when words aren't enough. One by one, the rest of the team did the same. Elena looked at them, at these men who 3 days ago had watched her bleed on a cafeteria floor, who now understood what she'd survived, what she'd sacrificed, what she'd lost. Thank you, she whispered. Cross cleared his throat. Commander Ward, I have orders from JSOC. They've been monitoring this evaluation. They want you back. Full reinstatement. Your choice of assignment. They say the door is always open. Elena shook her head. Tell them thank you, but no. I've done my time in those dark places. I've killed enough people for 3 lifetimes. I'm done with that. Then what will you do? She looked at Mercer, at his team, at the respect in their eyes that hadn't been there 3 days ago. I'll teach. I'll train. I'll make sure the next generation learns from my mistakes instead of making their own. I'll honor the people who died by helping others live. You'll stay here? Cross asked. Even after everything? Especially after everything. Because now I'm not hiding anymore. Now I'm not pretending. Now I'm finally being honest about who I am and what I can do. And maybe, her voice caught, maybe Sarah would be proud of that. Mercer stepped forward. Commander, I need to say something. Go ahead, Sergeant. 3 days ago, I thought I knew what strength looked like. I thought it was loud, aggressive, dominating. I thought it was never backing down, never showing weakness, never admitting you could be wrong. He took a breath. You taught me I was wrong about everything. Real strength is restraint. Real courage is carrying impossible weight and still choosing kindness. Real power is having the ability to destroy someone and choosing instead to teach them. His voice broke. You are the strongest person I've ever met, and I'm ashamed it took me this long to see it. Elena placed her hand on his shoulder. You see it now. That's what matters. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Mercer straightened. Be better. Every day. Be the kind of soldier Sarah Morrison would be proud to serve with. Then you've learned everything I have to teach. Cross picked up the tablet. This footage will be classified again after today. The official record will show that Commander Ward participated in a training evaluation and performed adequately. No mention of her actual capabilities. No mention of her history. Good, Elena said. Let it stay buried. What matters isn't what I did, it's what I do next. She walked to the door, then paused. Sergeant Mercer, your team performed exceptionally. You trusted when trust was hard. You adapted when adaptation was necessary. You learned. That makes you better than most. Because I had a good teacher. Elena smiled, a real smile, the first one Mercer had seen from her. Sarah was a better teacher. I'm just passing along her lessons. She left. The team sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Chen spoke. 37 confirmed kills in 6 hours while carrying a body. That's impossible, Morrison finished. Except we just watched it happen. Not impossible, Mercer corrected. Just unlikely. But when your only options are survive or die, when you've promised someone you'll bring them home, when you refuse to let go of that promise no matter what it costs, he shook his head, then maybe nothing is impossible. Stevens looked at Cross. What happens now? Now you go back to your regular assignments. You forget this evaluation ever revealed anything except basic tactical competence. You never speak about that footage. You never mention what you learned about Commander Ward's history. Cross's face was hard. But you remember what she taught you, about strength, about restraint, about what it means to truly serve. And her? Rodriguez asked. What happens to her? Cross smiled slightly. She teaches. She trains. She becomes the instructor everyone wishes they'd had. And maybe, if we're lucky, she finds some peace. They filed out, each processing what they'd witnessed in their own way. Mercer was the last to leave. At the door, he turned back. Major, one question. Go ahead. Why show us the footage? Why reveal what she wanted to keep hidden? Cross considered the question. Because she needed witnesses. Not to her suffering, she's had enough of that, but to her survival, to her choice to keep living even when living was harder than dying, to her decision to turn pain into purpose. He looked at Mercer directly. And because you needed to understand what you almost destroyed when you hit her in that cafeteria. Some people carry worlds inside them. You need to be careful which worlds you break. Mercer nodded and walked out into the rain. It was still falling, still cold, still relentless. But somehow it felt different now, cleaner, like something was being washed away, something that needed to go. 2 weeks passed before anyone outside the evaluation team knew what had really happened. The official reports were bland, sanitized, unremarkable. Commander Ward participated in training exercises. Performance was adequate, no incidents of note. But inside the barracks, everything had changed. Mercer found himself watching Elena differently, not with the contempt he'd felt before, but with something closer to reverence. And that terrified him because reverence could be just as blinding as contempt. Just another way of not seeing someone clearly. She was in the training yard when he approached, working with a group of new recruits on basic combat positioning. Her voice was patient, her corrections precise. She moved among them like someone who'd done this 1,000 times, which she probably had. "Commander, a moment?" Elena dismissed the recruits and turned to him. "What is it, Sergeant?" "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "I'm always honest." "Are you okay?" The question came out more raw than he intended. "After everything that happened, after we saw that footage, after you had to relive all of that, are you actually okay?" Elena studied him for a long moment. "No, but I'm better than I was. That's progress. That's not good enough. It's all I have, Sergeant. Healing isn't linear. It's not neat. It doesn't follow a timeline or meet expectations. Some days I wake up and feel like maybe I can breathe. Other days I can't get out of bed without seeing Sarah's face." She paused. "But I get up anyway. That's the part that matters." "How do you do it? How do you carry that weight and still function?" "Because the alternative is giving up. And giving up would mean Sarah died for nothing. That all those people I lost, all those sacrifices, they'd just be wasted pain. I can't accept that. Won't accept that." Mercer nodded. "I want to help, however I can. Tell me what you need." "I need you to keep learning, keep growing, keep being better than you were 3 weeks ago." Elena's voice was firm. "That's how you help. Not by trying to fix me. I'm not something that can be fixed. But by becoming the kind of soldier who makes all of this worth it." "I'm trying. I know. That's why I'm still here talking to you instead of filing assault charges." The comment should have been sharp, but she said it with a slight smile. Progress. They were both making progress. A jeep pulled up and Cross stepped out. His face was tight. "Commander Ward, Sergeant Mercer, my office, now." They followed him inside. Cross closed the door, locked it, and turned to face them. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Elena asked. "The kind where someone from the Pentagon is flying here tomorrow to interview you. Someone with a very high security clearance and a very specific set of questions." Cross handed her a file. "They're reopening the investigation into Operation Sanctuary." Elena's face went pale. "That operation was closed 14 years ago. All findings were classified and sealed." "They're unsealing them. Something about new intelligence suggesting the mission compromise wasn't accidental, that someone on the inside leaked the operation details." Cross looked at her directly. "They want to question everyone who survived." "That's just me," Elena said quietly. "Everyone else is dead." "Which is why they're coming here. They want your testimony. They want you to walk them through every decision, every engagement, every kill." Cross's jaw tightened. "They want to know if you were the leak." Mercer felt rage surge through him. "That's insane. She carried Morrison's body through enemy territory. She nearly died. How could anyone think—" "Because I was the only survivor," Elena interrupted. Her voice was hollow. "Because statistically, when an entire team is compromised and one person lives, that person is always suspect. It's basic intelligence protocol. I expected this years ago. I just hoped—" She stopped. "I hoped they'd let it stay buried." "Can you refuse to cooperate?" Mercer asked. "No, it's a direct order from higher authority. If I refuse, they'll assume guilt." Elena set down the file. "I'll answer their questions. I'll tell them exactly what happened, and either they'll believe me or they won't." "What if they don't?" Cross asked. "Then I face court-martial for treason, spend the rest of my life in prison, lose everything I've worked for." She looked at them both. "But I didn't leak that operation. I didn't betray my team, and I won't lie to protect myself." Mercer's mind was racing. There has to be evidence, something that proves— There's nothing. The compound was destroyed in an airstrike 6 hours after extraction. All potential evidence was incinerated. All witnesses were killed or scattered. It's my word against suspicion. Elena's hands were steady, but her voice carried an edge. And my word isn't worth much when I'm the only one left to give it. Cross-paced. This is wrong. After everything you've sacrificed, everything you've lost, they're going to put you through this? It's necessary. If there was a leak, it needs to be found. Other operations could still be compromised. Other lives could still be at risk. Elena looked at him. I'd do the same thing in their position. Trust has to be verified. You're too understanding, Mercer said. This is your life they're destroying. My life was destroyed 14 years ago. This is just paperwork. But the way she said it, flat, resigned, exhausted, made it clear the wounds were reopening. The scabs were being torn off, and she was bleeding again. When do they arrive? Cross asked. Tomorrow, 0900. They want a preliminary interview, then a full deposition under oath. Elena straightened her uniform. I should prepare. Commander, Mercer started. I'm fine, Sergeant, or I will be. I've survived worse than difficult questions. But as she walked out, Mercer saw something in her posture, a slight hunch, a tightness in her shoulders that suggested she wasn't fine at all. She was breaking. Quietly, privately, the way strong people break when they think no one's watching. We can't let this happen, Mercer said to Cross. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice. We just have to find it. That night, Mercer couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the footage from Operation Sanctuary, the way Elena moved, the decisions she made, the clear, obvious truth that she'd fought to survive, not to betray. But proof wasn't about truth. Proof was about evidence. And evidence had been destroyed. Unless it hadn't. He sat up, grabbed his phone, called Chen. It's 3 a.m, Chen groaned. I need your friend in personnel, the one who helped you look up Commander Ward's file. Why? Because if someone leaked Operation Sanctuary, there would be records, communications, data transfers, something that happened before the operation launched. Mercer was talking fast now, his mind connecting pieces. Personnel files aren't just service records. They're digital footprints. Every login, every file access, every communication is logged. That's a lot of data to search through, and most of it's classified. Can your friend do it? Chen was quiet for a long time. He could lose his job, his clearance, everything. And Commander Ward could lose her freedom for a crime she didn't commit. Which matters more? Another pause. I'll ask him. No promises. That's all I need. Mercer hung up and stared at the ceiling. This was dangerous, potentially career-ending. If they got caught digging into classified files, they'd face charges themselves. But Elena had walked into enemy fire for people who were already dead. She'd carried Morrison's body for 6 hours, when leaving it would have meant surviving easier. The least Mercer could do was risk his career to prove her innocence. Morning came too fast. The Pentagon investigator arrived in an unmarked sedan. A woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a briefcase that probably held Elena's entire life. Major Cross, I'm Agent Sarah Hendricks, Defense Criminal Investigative Service. I'm here to interview Commander Elena Ward regarding Operation Sanctuary. Cross led her to his office. Commander Ward is waiting inside. Hendricks nodded and entered. The door closed. Cross and Mercer stood outside, helpless. This is wrong, Mercer said for the 10th time. I know, but there's nothing we can do except wait. Inside, Elena sat across from Hendricks, her hands folded, her face neutral. She'd been through interrogations before. She knew how this worked. Commander Ward, thank you for your cooperation. Hendricks opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick file. I need to ask you about Operation Sanctuary, specifically about the mission compromise that led to the deaths of 6 operators. I'll tell you everything I remember. Let's start with the planning phase. Who had access to the operation details before deployment? Elena listed the names: intelligence officers, planning staff, command authority, everyone who needed to know. And after deployment, who did you communicate with? No one. We went dark 30 minutes after insertion, standard protocol for covert operations. But someone knew where you were. Someone told the hostiles exactly where to find you. Hendricks leaned forward. How do you explain that? I don't. I've spent 14 years trying to understand how we were compromised. I have theories, but no proof. What theories? Cell phone intercepts, satellite monitoring, human intelligence from local assets. Any of those could have revealed our position. Elena's voice was steady. But I never communicated our location, never broke radio silence, never did anything that could have compromised the mission. Then why did everyone else die while you survived? The question hung in the air like poison. Elena took a breath. Because Captain Morrison threw herself on a grenade. Because I was farther from the blast. Because I got lucky and everyone else didn't. Because survival isn't about deserving it. It's about random chance in being in the right place when death comes for your team. Or because you knew the attack was coming, because you positioned yourself to survive. Mercer, listening through the door, felt his blood boil. She's accusing her of planning the deaths of her own team, Cross finished grimly. Standard interrogation tactic. Make the subject angry. See how they react under pressure. But Elena didn't get angry. Her voice remained calm. If I'd wanted my team dead, Agent Hendricks, I wouldn't have carried Captain Morrison's body through 6 hours of enemy territory. I would have left her, saved myself the wait, the risk, the exhaustion. But I didn't, because she saved my life, and I promised I'd bring her home. And unlike whoever leaked that operation, I keep my promises. Unless keeping promises serves your cover story, then you've already decided I'm guilty. So why are we here? Elena stood. Either charge me or let me go. I won't sit here while you dishonor the memory of people who died protecting this country. Hendricks didn't blink. Sit down, Commander. We're not done. Yes, we are. You're not investigating the leak. You're looking for someone to blame. Someone to punish because 6 operators died and someone needs to be held accountable. I understand that impulse. I've lived with it for 14 years. But I didn't betray my team, and I won't confess to something I didn't do just to give you closure. She walked to the door, opened it, looked back at Hendricks. If you find real evidence that I was the leak, I'll face whatever consequences come. But until then, I'm done being interrogated for surviving when everyone else died. That guilt is mine to carry, not yours to weaponize. She walked out, past Mercer, past Cross, straight to her quarters and slammed the door. Hendricks emerged a moment later. Major Cross, I'm not satisfied with Commander Ward's answers. I'm recommending a full investigation. She's to remain on base pending further inquiries. On what grounds? Cross demanded. Suspicion of treason. Suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder. Suspicion of aiding enemy combatants. Hendricks closed her briefcase. I'll have formal charges drafted by end of day. She left. Mercer stared at Cross. We have to do something. Like what? We can't manufacture evidence. We can't. Mercer's phone buzzed. A text from Chen. Found something. Big. Meet me at the data center. Now. Mercer ran. Sprinted across the base to the data center where Chen worked. Burst through the door to find Chen and another soldier hunched over a computer screen. Tell me you have good news, Mercer gasped. Better than good. Chen pointed to the screen. My friend pulled the access logs for Operation Sanctuary. Every person who viewed the mission files, when they viewed them, what they accessed. And? Commander Ward never accessed the files. Not once. She was briefed verbally by Captain Morrison. Never looked at the digital files. Never logged into the system. So someone else did. 3 days before the operation launched. At 2 a.m. From a terminal that was supposed to be secured. Chen pulled up another screen. The login credentials belonged to a staff officer named Captain James Holland. He accessed the mission location, team composition, Insertion timeline, everything the hostiles would need to set up an ambush. Mercer's heart was pounding. Where's Holland now? Chen's friend spoke up. Dead. Killed in a training accident 6 months after Operation Sanctuary. Except, he pulled up another file. The accident report is classified. The investigating officer's notes are sealed, and Holland's personnel file was scrubbed of all details related to his last 6 months of service. Someone covered this up, Mercer said. Not just someone high-ranking enough to seal reports in scrub files. Chen looked at him. This goes deeper than one leak. This is institutional. We need to give this to Agent Hendricks. We can't. This data was accessed without authorization. It's inadmissible. And if we reveal how we got it, we all face charges. Chen's face was grim. We have the truth but no way to use it. Mercer grabbed the files. Then we find another way. Because Commander Ward is about to be charged with treason for something she didn't do. And I'm not letting that happen. He ran back to Cross's office, burst in without knocking. Major, I have proof. Holland was the leak, not Commander Ward. Cross looked at the files. His face hardened. How did you get this? Does it matter? It matters when it destroys the careers of everyone who touched it. But Cross kept reading. His eyes widened. This is damning. Holland accessed everything. Timing matches perfectly. If Hendricks sees this, she'll know Elena is innocent. And she'll know we accessed classified files without authorization. We'll all face charges. Cross set down the files. This is a choice, Sergeant. Commander Ward's freedom or our careers. Maybe our freedom too. Mercer didn't hesitate. Then we burn, but she doesn't. She's already burned enough for all of us. Cross looked at him for a long time. Then he picked up the phone. Agent Hendricks, this is Major Cross. I need you to return to base immediately. We've uncovered evidence relevant to your investigation. When Hendricks arrived, Cross handed her the files, explained how they were obtained, waited for the hammer to fall. Hendricks read every page. Her face remained neutral, but something shifted in her eyes. This is illegally obtained evidence. Yes, ma'am. Which means I can't use it in any official capacity. Yes, ma'am. But it points to someone who should have been investigated 14 years ago. Someone whose death was awfully convenient. Hendricks closed the file. I'm going to reopen the Holland investigation. Look into who sealed those reports. Find out why this was buried. And Commander Ward? Mercer asked. Cleared of suspicion, pending my final report. Hendricks looked at Cross. But you three, you've committed serious violations. Accessing classified files, unauthorized disclosure. This could mean court-martial. We understand, Cross said. Good, because I'm going to forget I ever saw how you obtained this information, and you're going to forget we had this conversation. Hendricks stood. Sometimes justice matters more than procedure, but don't make me regret this. She left. Cross, Mercer, and Chen sat in stunned silence. Did she just, Chen started, cover for us? Yes, Cross looked at them. We got lucky, incredibly lucky. Don't ever do something this stupid again. If it means saving an innocent person, I'd do it every time, Mercer said. I know. That's why you're a good soldier. Also why you'll probably die young. But Cross smiled. Go tell Commander Ward. She deserves to know. Mercer found Elena in her quarters, packing. Commander, what are you doing? Preparing. When they file charges, they'll want me in custody. I'm getting my affairs in order. They're not filing charges. You're cleared. Elena stopped, turned. What? We found proof. Holland was the leak, not you. Hendricks is reopening the investigation. Elena sat down slowly. How did you? Does it matter? She laughed, a real genuine laugh that sounded like it hurt coming out. You accessed classified files without authorization, didn't you? You risked everything. You carried Morrison for 6 hours. I think I can risk my career. Elena looked at him, and tears started flowing. Not quiet tears, not dignified tears, raw, ugly, broken tears. 14 years of them. 14 years of being suspected, being judged, being blamed for surviving. Mercer didn't say anything. He just sat next to her and waited. When she finally spoke, her voice was hoarse. "Thank you for believing me, for fighting for me, for—" She couldn't finish. "For doing what you've been doing for everyone else your entire career," Mercer finished. Someone had to return the favor. They sat together in silence as the afternoon light faded. Outside, the base continued its routine operations. Inside, something had fundamentally shifted. Elena was finally free, not just legally, but from the weight she'd carried, from the suspicion, from the doubt. And Mercer had learned what it truly meant to stand with someone, not just in combat, but in the quiet moments when everything hung in the balance, and the only thing that mattered was choosing to believe in someone when belief was hard. "What happens now?" he asked. Elena wiped her eyes. "Now I teach, for real this time. No more hiding, no more pretending. I become the instructor Sarah always believed I could be. And me? You keep learning, keep growing, keep proving that good soldiers can become better humans." She looked at him. "You've come a long way from the man who hit me in that cafeteria. I'm sorry. For that. For everything. For— I know, and I've forgiven you. Now you need to forgive yourself. I don't know how. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out together." Outside, someone knocked. Chen's voice came through the door. "Commander, Sergeant, Major Cross wants to see you both. Says it's important." They walked across his office to find him smiling, actually smiling. "What is it?" Elena asked. "Hendricks just called. They found Holland's communications. He'd been selling intelligence to a foreign handler for 6 months. Operation Sanctuary was just one of many compromises. He's been dead for 14 years, but they've rolled up his entire network. 37 other operations have been secured because of what you uncovered today." "So it's over?" Mercer asked. "It's over. Commander Ward is officially cleared. No charges, no suspicion, clean record." Cross looked at Elena. "You're free. Completely." Elena closed her eyes, breathed, opened them. "Then let's get to work. We have a lot of soldiers to train, and not enough time to teach them everything they need to know." She walked out, her shoulders straight, her head high, her steps sure. Mercer watched her go. "She's going to be okay, isn't she?" "Eventually," Cross said. "Healing takes time, but she's got something now she didn't have before." "What's that?" "Truth, justice, people who believe in her." Cross looked at Mercer. "Sometimes that's all any of us need. Someone to stand beside us when standing alone is too hard." Mercer nodded. Outside, the sun was setting. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new students, new lessons. But tonight, they could rest knowing that justice had won, that truth had mattered, that fighting for someone who couldn't fight for themselves was always the right choice, even when it cost everything. Especially then. 3 months later, everything looked the same but felt different. The base still operated on the same rhythms. Morning PT, training exercises, evening reports. But something fundamental had shifted in the way people moved through those routines. Elena stood in front of 40 new recruits, her voice carrying across the training ground. "Combat isn't about being the strongest. It's not about being the fastest or the loudest. It's about making the right decision when every option looks wrong. It's about choosing wisely when choosing poorly means people die." Mercer watched from the sidelines. He'd been reassigned to instructor duty, working directly under Elena. Cross had made it official. Mercer would spend the next 2 years learning how to teach instead of just how to fight. "Some of you think you know what combat looks like," Elena continued. "You've watched movies, played games. Maybe some of you have even seen action. But let me tell you what combat actually is. It's exhaustion so deep you can't remember your own name. It's making life or death decisions with information that's always incomplete and usually wrong. It's watching people you love die and having to keep moving because stopping means everyone else dies too. The recruits were silent, transfixed. And here's what they don't tell you in basic training. The hardest part isn't the fighting, it's what comes after. It's carrying the weight of every decision you made, every life you took, every person you couldn't save. That weight never goes away. You just learn to carry it better. A hand went up. A young woman, barely 20. How do you carry it, Commander? How do you keep going? Elena looked at her for a long moment. You find purpose in the pain. You turn survival into service. You honor the people you lost by making sure their deaths meant something. By teaching the next generation to be better, smarter, more careful with the lives entrusted to them. Is that why you're here? The recruit asked. To teach us? Yes, and to make sure that fewer of you end up carrying the weight I carry, that fewer of you have to learn the lessons I learned at the cost I paid. Elena's voice was firm. Your job isn't to be fearless, it's to be thoughtful, to question, to think 3 steps ahead, to understand that real courage isn't charging into danger, it's knowing when not to. After the session, the recruits filed out buzzing with energy and questions. Mercer approached Elena. That was good. They listened. They're young. They think they're invincible. Elena watched them go. Give them 6 months and some of them will understand. The rest will learn the hard way. You can't save everyone. I know, but I can try. She looked at him. How are you doing with your class? Mercer grimaced. They think I'm soft. Yesterday, one of them asked why we spend so much time on tactical planning when real soldiers just react. What did you say? I told him that soldiers who just react are the first ones to die. Soldiers who plan survive. Mercer shook his head. He didn't believe me. Then show him. Take him through a scenario where planning matters. Make it real enough that he feels the cost of being wrong. Is that what Morrison did for you? Made it real? Elena smiled sadly. Sarah didn't have to make anything real. She just showed me what right looked like. Over and over until I couldn't unsee it. Until making good decisions became automatic. She paused. That's what we're doing here. Building reflexes. Not physical ones, mental ones. The kind that save lives when there's no time to think. Did she know that she was training you to replace her? I think she knew she wouldn't live forever. That eventually someone would have to carry what she carried. She chose to prepare me for that, to give me the tools I'd need to survive when she couldn't. Elena's voice caught. I just wish she'd prepared me for how much it would hurt. Losing her, carrying on without her. Maybe that's the one thing no one can prepare you for. Maybe. They walked toward the command building. Halfway there, Cross intercepted them. His face was serious. Commander Ward, you have visitors, my office. Who? See for yourself. In Cross's office, 3 people waited. 2 men and a woman, all in their 50s, all wearing uniforms with impressive ranks. Elena stopped in the doorway. Colonel Martinez, Colonel Chen, General Bradford. I didn't know you were coming. Martinez stepped forward. Elena, it's been too long. 14 years, Elena said quietly. You were at Sarah's funeral. We all were. We all lost someone that day. Martinez gestured to the others. We've been following your situation, the investigation, the charges, the resolution. We're glad it worked out. Why are you here? General Bradford spoke. Because JSOC wants you back. Full reinstatement, your choice of assignment. Name your terms, and we'll make it happen. Elena shook her head. I already gave my answer. I'm done with that work. We're not asking you to operate. We're asking you to lead, to build the next generation of operators, to create a training program based on your experience. Bradford pulled out a folder. We've been losing too many people to preventable mistakes, tactical errors, poor decision-making under pressure. We need someone who understands the real cost of those mistakes, Someone who's paid the price and survived to teach others. I'm already teaching. At one base, with limited resources, limited reach. Colonel Chen leaned forward. We're offering you the chance to build something bigger, a comprehensive training program that every special operations unit goes through. Your curriculum, your standards, your vision of what operators need to be. Elena looked at the folder but didn't take it. This feels like pressure. It's an opportunity, Martinez said, to honor Sarah's memory, to make sure her death, all their deaths, result in better training, better preparation, better survival rates. You're using her to manipulate me. We're asking you to finish what she started. She was building a training philosophy before she died. You saw it. You learned from it. Now pass it on. Make it standard doctrine instead of just something a few people remember. Elena was quiet for a long time. Finally, she looked at Mercer. What do you think? Mercer was surprised to be asked. I think you've been teaching 40 recruits when you could be teaching thousands. I think Sarah would want her methods spread as far as possible. And I think you're the only person qualified to do it. You'd be leaving Fort Bragg, Elena said. Only if you want me to come with you. This is your decision, your opportunity. Mercer met her eyes. But wherever you go, whatever you build, I want to be part of it. You've taught me more in 3 months than I learned in 7 years. I'm not done learning. Elena turned back to Bradford. I have conditions. Name them. I choose my staff. No political appointments. No officers who got their position through connections instead of competence. I want people who've been there, who understand what real combat costs. Agreed. I control curriculum completely. No watering down the hard lessons. No making things comfortable because someone's feelings might get hurt. If we're training people to survive, we train them for reality, not fantasy. Agreed. And I want full authority to fail people, to tell soldiers they're not ready, to keep them from deployment if they haven't met standards. No pressure to pass people because we need bodies. Bradford hesitated. That's harder. There are quotas, timelines, political considerations. Then find someone else, because I won't sign off on sending people into combat before they're ready. I've seen what happens when training is rushed. I buried those people. I won't be responsible for creating more of them. Bradford and Martinez exchanged looks. Finally, Bradford nodded. Agreed. Full authority over standards and graduation. One more thing. Sergeant Mercer comes with me, as Assistant Director of Training. Full authority under my command. Mercer's eyes widened. Commander, I'm not qualified for... You will be. By the time we launch this program, you'll have learned everything I can teach you, and you'll help me teach others. Elena looked at Bradford. That's non-negotiable. Done. Bradford extended his hand. Welcome back to JSOC, Commander Ward. Or should I say, Director Ward. Elena shook his hand but didn't smile. I'll need 6 months to build the foundation, to develop curriculum, to vet staff. Don't expect miracles overnight. We've waited 14 years. 6 months is nothing. After they left, Elena sat heavily in Cross's chair. Mercer stood beside her, still processing. Assistant Director, I can't. You can, you will. Because I need someone I trust. Someone who understands that the job isn't about ego or glory. It's about keeping people alive. Elena looked up at him. You've changed, Kyle. 3 months ago, you were the kind of soldier I'd have failed immediately. Too arrogant, too reckless, too focused on proving yourself instead of completing the mission. But you've learned. You've grown. You've become someone I'd want watching my back. Because you taught me. Because you were willing to learn. That's rarer than you think. She stood. We leave in 3 weeks. Use that time to say your goodbyes. To prepare. Because once we start building this program, there's no stopping. No slowing down. We'll be training operators who'll go into the worst situations imaginable. And every decision we make, Every lesson we teach, it'll mean the difference between them coming home or not. I'm ready. You will be. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Elena and Mercer worked 20-hour days, developing curriculum, writing doctrine, identifying potential instructors. Cross helped where he could, but mostly he watched them work with quiet pride. "You've done something remarkable here," he told Elena on their last night at Fort Bragg. "You took the worst moment of your career, the worst moment of your life, and you're turning it into something that'll save lives for generations." "Sarah did that. I'm just executing her vision." "Sarah died before she could finish. You're finishing it. That's not the same as executing someone else's work. That's creation. That's legacy." Cross handed her a glass of whiskey. "To Sarah Morrison, and to the thousands of soldiers who live because of what she taught you." They drank in silence. Later that night, Elena found herself at her desk, staring at a photograph she'd kept hidden for 14 years. Sarah Morrison, smiling in full gear, looking younger than Elena remembered, looking alive. "I'm doing it," Elena whispered to the photo. "What you wanted, what you dreamed. I'm making it real. I'm making it matter." The photo didn't answer, but Elena felt something shift in her chest. Not peace, that would take years, maybe forever, but acceptance. Acknowledgement that she was finally doing what Sarah had died to give her the chance to do. Moving forward, carrying the weight, making it mean something. The morning they left Fort Bragg, half the base turned out to see them off. Chen, Stevens, Morrison, Rodriguez, all there, all changed by what they'd witnessed. "Don't forget us," Chen said, "when you're training the next generation of elite operators." "I won't forget anyone," Elena replied, "especially not the people who proved that believing in someone costs something, but not believing costs more." She and Mercer drove off as the sun rose. The base shrank in the rearview mirror, but neither of them looked back. The future was ahead. The work was waiting. 6 months later, the first class of the Special Operations Advanced Training Program graduated. 40 operators, all tested beyond anything they'd experienced before. All pushed to their absolute limits. All taught to think before acting, to plan before executing, to understand that survival wasn't about being the toughest, it was about being the smartest. Elena stood at the podium, looking at faces that reminded her of herself at their age. Young, determined, convinced they were ready for anything. "Today you graduate from this program, but understand something, you're not finished. You'll never be finished. Every mission will teach you something. Every mistake will cost you something. Every life you save or lose will change you. Your job is to learn from all of it, to become better, to honor the people who trained you by staying alive and bringing your teams home." She paused, gathering herself for what came next. This program exists because of a woman named Captain Sarah Morrison. She died 14 years ago in a place that doesn't exist, on a mission that was never acknowledged, leading a team that the world forgot. But I didn't forget. I carried her memory through every dark place I went. I carried her lessons through every impossible situation. And now I'm giving those lessons to you. Elena's voice strengthened. Sarah believed that the best operators weren't the ones who never felt fear. They were the ones who felt it and acted anyway, who understood the stakes and chose to serve regardless, who knew they might not come home, but went anyway because someone had to. That's what she died believing. That's what I live teaching. And that's what I expect from every person who graduates this program. She looked across the assembled soldiers. You're not heroes yet. You're just people with training and potential. What you become depends on what you choose to do with it. Choose wisely. Choose thoughtfully. Choose like your decisions matter, because they do. To the people beside you, to the people depending on you, to the people who'll never know you saved them. Mercer stood at the side, watching Elena command the room. This was who she was meant to be. Not hiding, not running, not pretending the past didn't exist, but standing in full acknowledgement of what she'd survived and who she'd lost, and using that weight to build something that mattered. After the ceremony, a young operator approached Elena. "Commander Ward, I just wanted to say thank you. This program saved my life before I ever deployed. The things you taught us about thinking ahead, about respecting the enemy, about knowing when not to fight, I would have never learned that anywhere else. Thank you for listening. Not everyone does. Can I ask you something?" The operator hesitated. "Do you still think about them? The people you lost?" "Every day." "Does it get easier?" Elena considered the question carefully. "No, but you get stronger. The weight doesn't decrease. You just build the capacity to carry it better. And eventually you learn to turn that weight into purpose, into motivation, into a reason to keep going when stopping would be easier." "How long does that take?" "I'll let you know when I get there." Elena smiled slightly. "But I'm closer than I was, and that's progress." The operator saluted and walked away. Mercer approached. "That was good, what you said about Sarah. She deserved to be remembered. They all did." Elena looked at him. "Thank you for pushing me 3 months ago, for believing I was worth fighting for proving that growth is possible even when everything says it's not. You did that yourself. I just watched. No, you participated. You changed. You became someone different than who you were. That's not watching. That's transformation." They walked through the training facility together, past classrooms where future soldiers would learn, past ranges where they'd practice, past memorial walls where names of the fallen were etched in stone. Sarah Morrison's name was there, along with the 6 others who died in Operation Sanctuary. Elena stopped in front of the wall, placed her hand on Sarah's name. "I kept my promise. I brought you home, and now I'm making sure what you taught me lives on, that your death wasn't wasted, that the lessons you gave your life to teach me get passed to every operator who comes through this program." She turned to Mercer. "That's the only way to honor the dead, not by mourning forever, but by living fully, by taking what they gave us and making it matter, by becoming better because they showed us how." Mercer nodded. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so, because everything I'm doing, everything I'm building, it's all because she believed I was worth saving, worth training, worth surviving." Elena's voice was strong now, clear. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my career proving she was right, that investing in people matters, that teaching with patience and purpose saves lives, that the best legacy isn't the battles you win, it's the soldiers you prepare to fight their own." As they walked away from the memorial wall, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in 14 years. Not peace, that was too simple, too clean, but purpose, direction. A reason to wake up every morning that wasn't just survival but contribution. Service, making the world safer one trained operator at a time. The weight was still there, the memories, the scars, the faces of people who hadn't made it home. But now that weight had shape, had direction, had meaning beyond just pain. Sarah Morrison had died believing that good soldiers could become great ones with the right training. Elena Ward lived proving she was right. And every soldier who graduated, every life that was saved because of better preparation, every family that got their loved one back whole, that was Sarah's legacy. Not the missions, not the medals, not the classified operations that would never be acknowledged, but the quiet, persistent act of making sure that fewer people had to pay the price she paid, that fewer soldiers learned lessons at the cost of lives instead of through careful teaching. That was worth surviving for, worth carrying the weight for, worth honoring the dead by serving the living. Elena Ward had spent 14 years running from who she'd been. Now she was stepping into who she'd always been meant to become. Not a ghost, not a shadow, but a teacher, a mentor, a guardian who protected not through violence, but through preparation, not through fighting, but through wisdom. And that was the truest form of strength. Not dominating, not destroying, but nurturing, building, creating something that would outlast her and continue saving lives long after she was gone. Being strong wasn't about winning fights. It was about choosing who you become after surviving them, and using that survival to lift others up instead of pushing them down. That was Sarah's final lesson. And Elena Ward would spend the rest of her life teaching it to every soldier who walked through her doors.